Hey everybody, it's May from Black Mountain Faith, and today we're going to do the last Bible reading for the book of Genesis. It's chapters 48 through 50, so just stay tuned. Okay friends, so I'm really excited that we are on day 16. I can officially say I have read the entire book of Genesis, and I not only read it, I dived deep into it. I took a lot of notes. I'm really, really proud of myself. Are y'all? Did you stick with it? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Okay, so when we had left off, we know that Joseph has been working for the Pharaoh very hard. He's making him very wealthy during this time of famine, and he's taking care of his family. And he has sworn a solemn oath to his father that when Jacob dies, he will not bury him in Egypt. He will take him back to the land of his fathers and bury him in the cave of Machpelah, which is known as the cave of the patriarchs. So it says, Jacob blesses Ephraim and Manasseh. Joseph was told, behold, your father is ill. So he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And it was told to Jacob, your son Joseph has come to you. And then Israel summoned the strength and set up in bed. So he's very close to his time of dying, where he has no energy. He goes, he says, and now your two sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt are mine. So basically he's adopting his own grandchildren here. And he says, they are mine. Where was I at? Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, as Reuben and Simon are. So he's giving them the same hierarchy in his lineage as his firstborn children. Okay? So his grandchildren are now elevated up to like firstborn children. And the children that you fathered after them shall be yours. Like, in other words, Joseph can claim children he has from here out, but his first two children have been adopted by his father. They shall be called by your name, by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. As for me, when I came from Padam, to my sorrow, Rachel died in the land of Canaan on the way, when there was still some distance to go to Ephrath, and I buried her there along the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. So he's reinstating here that he's very upset that he passed away, that Rachel passed away before, they reached Canaan. And when Israel saw Joseph's sons, he said, who are these? Joseph said to his father, they are my sons, whom God has given me here. And he said, bring them to me, please, that I may bless them. So it's a tradition that when the elder is about to pass away, they start bestowing their blessings. But Jacob's pretty special here. He's one of the patriarchs. So his blessings are going to hold weight, and they're ordained by God. He knows what to say in the blessing because God has given him that ability. And so he says, so Joseph brought them near, and he kissed them, and he embraced them. And then Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see your face, and behold, God has let me see your offspring as well. So he's not only happy that he was reunited with Joseph, now he gets to see Joseph's children, his grandchildren. And it says, then Joseph removed them from his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in the left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. So Joseph is lining them up according to their age, like firstborn, secondborn, because generally the firstborn gets the better of the blessing. But things go a little skew here. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on the head of Ephraim, who was the younger, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, crossing his hands, for Manasseh was firstborn. And then he blessed Joseph and said, the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the boys. And in them let my name be carried on, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow in a multitude in the midst of the earth. So he's asking God, to formally allow them to be considered Jacob's offspring. In other words, I wish to adopt these two boys. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's hand to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, "Not this way, my father, since this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his offspring shall become a multitude of nations." So he blessed them that day, saying, "By you Israel will pronounce blessing, saying, God make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh." Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. So he knows what he's doing here. He knows that the younger son has the larger of the blessing. So the notes that I put is this chapter focuses on Jacob nearing his time of death and the blessings he bestows on Joseph's two younger sons. Joseph brings Manasseh and Ephraim to receive Jacob's blessing when he learns of his father's illness. In a surprising move, Jacob adopts Manasseh and Ephraim as his own sons, placing them on equal footing of his firstborn sons, Reuben and Simon. Jacob then delivers a blessing prophesying that the younger son Ephraim will become a greater nation than the elder son Manasseh. Despite Joseph's attempt to correct his father's hand placement, Jacob insists on blessing and explains his reasoning why. Jacob then prophesies about the future return of the Israelites to their ancestral land and gives a final blessing for Joseph, highlighting his future prosperity. So basically, he's blessed Joseph and his two children in private. And we know that Jacob is going to bless all of his sons, which is 12 in total. Now, it says Jacob blesses each of his sons, offering both praise and pronouncements about their future. Some blessings are positive, while others are more critical. So we have to realize that 12 tribes of Israel is going to be prominent in the rest of the Old Testament. And basically, what chapter 49 is for, because I had a friend go, well, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It actually is a very pivotal point in the book of Genesis as well as the Old Testament. It's because from these 12 sons come your 12 tribes of Israel. And with Jacob's blessing to his sons, or, not blessings in a way, however they viewed it and way he worded it, it sets the tone for the future tribes underneath that child. Does that make sense? Or that son. So, Reuben lost all inheritance of the firstborn because he slept with Bilhah. And we know he slept with Jacob's concubine, and Jacob was very upset about it. We didn't hear a whole lot at the time, but now that it's time to come and bless his sons, he says, "Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the first fruits of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. Unstable as water, you shall not have preeminence, because you went up to your father's bed, and then you defiled it. He went up to my couch." So he's still very bent out of shape that his firstborn son, Reuben, slept with his concubine. So basically, he lost all the inheritance of the firstborn. Simon and Levi. He says, "Simon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their swords. Let my soul come not into their counsel. All my glory be not joined to their company. For in their anger they killed men, and in their willfulness they hamstrung oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel." So this one is a little more complex because we have these two brothers here that we know back here when Dinah was defiled, right? The men kind of like offhandedly said, "Hey, just let us marry her because my son really likes her, and everything will be okay." And to Jacob's sons, they were very upset that Jacob didn't handle the situation, and they felt they needed to. So they told the men of the city, if you're all circumcised, then we'll marry your wives and y'all can marry ours. And the men said, okay. And we all know that circumcision, especially in grown men, is going to put you down for a few days. And when they were circumcised and they were too sore to move, Simon and Levi literally went in and killed every man. Even, it says, they killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went away. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks, their herds, their donkeys, and whatever was in the city and filled all their wealth, all their little ones, and their wives, all that was in their houses. They captured and plundered. And Jacob told him then, you have brought trouble on me by making me a stink to the inhabitants of this land. And when they leave, God even has to protect them as they pass other cities that's heard of this. It's just horrible. They massacred an entire community of men, and they had planned it by telling them to become circumcised. So that way when they go to kill them, they're not putting up that much resistance. So because of that, when Jacob gives his blessings, he curses their anger for what they did to the Shechemites when Dinah was defiled. They will be dispersed and scattered among the tribes of Israel. And it says Levi's descendants were spread throughout the tribes of Israel, and they serve as priests. So it does seem like it's a curse here, but I think it's more on the curse of their anger. And he says basically these two tribes, they're going to go into the other 10. Okay, and we know as we read through the Old Testament that is exactly what happens. Now Judah was not a firstborn, but we can see with the highlighting I've done here, Judah is held in high favor. Not as high as Benjamin and Joseph, because he's not a true biological child of Rachel, but he is held in high favor. It says, Judah, your brother shall praise you. Your hand still shall be on the neck of your enemies, and your father's son shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as a lioness, who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. Now, I'm going to stop right there because it says Judah, his descendants, plays a large role in the history of Israel, and they do. They become the rulers of all the tribes of Israel. So Judah is going to rule all over the rest of the tribes of Israel. And Judah's blessing also foretells of the Messiah. Christ calls himself the true vine in John 15:1. And Joseph is seen by many as the figure who foreshadows the being of Christ. So Christ is the true vine, and Joseph is sometimes called the fruitful vine, because everything that Joseph touched or was involved with turns out for the good, the better, and it blossoms. So he's kind of like the preemptive, but he's not the Messiah that is already being foretold here in chapter 49 of Genesis. So it says, binding his foal to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He has washed his garments in wine and his vesture in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine and his teeth whiter than milk. So we know that Judah is going to come out as like the head of the 12 tribes of Israel. They're going to play the most pivotal point throughout all of the Old Testament. All of the main people that we really want to pay attention to, and all of the highlighting events that are to come are going to come from Judah's tribe. So it says, Zebulun shall dwell at the shore of the sea. He shall become a haven for ships, and his border shall be at Sidon. Zebulun will live by the sea and become a safe harbor. And what's interesting to note is that in this area, we end up with the town of Galilee. And we all know that Jesus is from Galilee. So Issachar will enjoy his new land to the point of becoming enslaved, as opposed not to have to leave it. It says, Issachar is a strong donkey crouching between the sheepfolds. He saw that a resting place was good and that the land was pleasant. So he chewed his shoulder to bear and became a servant at forced labor. So in other words, Issachar and his tribe of Israel, are going to go to a place and they don't want to leave it. He'd rather become enslaved than to have to leave that land, which is going to be pretty interesting to find out which his tribe is going to be. Now, I didn't name the 12 tribes of Israel here because, like if you're talking about Benjamin, you may have heard of the Benjamites. You may have heard of the Judites. That's basically the way you would name the 12 tribes of Israel, but they also have other names, and I intend as we go through the next few books of the Bible to come back and actually write that in here in larger markers so that I can have that. So it says, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a viper by the path that bites on the horse's heels, so that the rider falls backwards. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. So it says, Dan, his tribe will provide justice for the people of Israel. Now, a lot of scholars in commentary says that there's no evident link to the law and the leaders of law to the tribe of Dan. However, Samson, a future judge of Israel, does come from the tribe of Dan. Gad. Raiders shall raid Gad, but he shall raid at their heels. And that's all he says about Gad. But Gad his tribe refused to cross the Jordan to the promised land, which that's going to be pretty interesting when we get to that part. And thus, because he's isolated, he's vulnerable to attacks. So his father is already saying this is what's going to happen because, it's being foretold. Asher's food shall be rich, and he shall yield royal delicacies. So it says from Asher, his tribe comes from a region that was prosperous and known for wheat, olive oil, milk, and butter. Sounds kind of like Italy to me, but that's what Asher's going to be known for. And then Naphtali is a doe let loose that bears fruitful fawns. And it says Naphtali, this is thought to be a prophecy of Deborah, or the Song of Deborah. So we're pretty sure that Deborah comes from his tribe. So then we know he's already blessed Joseph, and we know that Joseph doesn't need additional blessing. God's already bestowing so many blessings on Joseph, but he does go ahead and name out for all of his children that are there listening to him give his blessings before he dies. He gives Joseph his. It says Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over the wall. The archers bitterly attacked him, shot at him, and harassed him severely, yet his bow remained unmoved. His arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is a shepherd, the stone of Israel. By the God of your father who helped you, by the Almighty who will bless you with the blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that crouches beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. Blessings of your father are mighty beyond the blessings of my parents, up to the bounties of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph and on the brow of him who was set apart from his brothers. It says Joseph, his perseverance is staying strong through adversity, everything he's been through. He is considered the fruitful vine. And then we come to Benjamin. It says, Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, in the morning devouring the prey, and at the evening dividing the spoil. So Benjamin, his tribe will be known for its courage and ferociousness, okay? And the Apostle Paul was a Benjamite, as well as Mordecai and Esther. So that is very interesting, I thought, when I was doing the commentary readings. So at the very end of chapter 49, it says Jacob's death and burial. And it says, all these are the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what their father said to them as he blessed them, blessing each with the blessing suitable to him. And then he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, to the east of Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite to possess as a burying place. There they are buried, Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah. The field and the cave that is in it were bought from the Hittites. When Jacob finished commanding his sons, he drew up his feet into the bed and breathed his last and was gathered to his people. So he's blessed all of his sons. He's foretold the tribes of Israel. He's begged them once again to please keep their oath to bury him there, why it's so important to him to be buried there. And he passes away. And it says, Jacob expresses his desire to be buried in Canaan alongside his ancestors. Jacob's pronouncements suggest a degree of divine inspiration shaping the future course of each tribe. So it says, then Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. 40 days were required for it, and that is how many are required for embalming. And the Egyptians wept for him 70 days. So we're quite a distance from where he needs to be buried, and we know the Egyptians are very good at embalming and mummifying. You're in a desolate desert type environment. It's required. You don't want the body to decay on the way. So the Egyptians have prepared him in the Egyptian style to make it easier for Joseph and his brothers to take his father back to Canaan and honor his request. So when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, if now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the ears of the Pharaoh, saying, my father made me swear, saying, I am about to die. In my tomb that I have hewed out for myself in the land of Canaan, there shall you bury me. Now therefore let me please go up and bury my father, then I will return. And Pharaoh answered, go up and bury your father, as he made you swear. So Joseph went to bury his father. With him went all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his household, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, as well as all the household of Joseph, his brothers, and his father's household. Only their children, their flocks, and their herds were left in the land of Goshen. There went up with him both chariots and horsemen. It was a very great company. So he's asking Pharaoh, look, I know I'm having this huge responsibility of handling the famine for the land, but my father made me swear, and I need to do this. And Pharaoh's like, yes, do it. And he not only does it, he sends chariots. He sends horsemen. They're going to be protected from raiders on the way. They're going to have more than enough supplies. They're going to have food. They're going to have everything they need to get his father's body back to Canaan to be buried. And he tells Joseph, go, take this time off. You do what you need to do. He understands. So everybody, all of his brothers, all the important people in Egypt that can be spared, the horsemen, the chariots, everybody. It's a great procession for this last patriarch here, or one of the last patriarchs here at the time, where Abraham through Jacob is being buried. So I have this little image of like the camel pulling the cart, kind of like a ancient time hearse, with Jacob's body in it, and it's prepared in such a way that it will be able to make the journey to go home. And he gets all the way back there, and it says after he had buried his father Joseph, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had gone out with him to bury his father. Now, I put this chapter marks the closing of Genesis. It focuses on the death of Jacob and Joseph. Joseph has his father embalmed for 40 days and wept for 70, as was the Egyptian custom. Before making the journey to Canaan to bury Jacob, Joseph secures Pharaoh's blessing and permission to fulfill his father's last wish. Jacob wished to be buried in the family tomb, the cave in Machpelah, the cave of the patriots. The funeral procession was a very large, a great company. So it says God's good purposes. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, it may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for all the evil that we did to him. So they sent a message to Joseph saying, your father gave us this command before he died. Say to Joseph, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, because they did evil to you. And now, please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father. And Joseph wept when he spoke to him. He's telling his brothers, I forgive you. This was all God's plan. He says, behold, we are your servants. No, but Joseph said to them, do not fear, for I am in the place of God. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive, as they are today. So do not fear. I will provide for you and your little ones. Thus he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. So he says, look, just because our father has passed away, and yes, you meant to do that to me. You meant to either kill me, and then you decided to just sell me off into slavery. You meant to lie to father and tell him I was devoured by animals. You made him feel guilty for so long. You meant that. But it doesn't matter. I'm only here because it was part of God's plan. It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't part of God's plan. I'm here to take care of everyone during the famine. Otherwise, people would have died. And so everything is resolved with his brothers. It says the death of Joseph. So Joseph remained in Egypt, he and his father's house. Joseph lived for 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation. The children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were counted as Joseph's own. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old. They embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. So Joseph lives to the age of 110 and sees his descendants flourish and secures a promise from his people to one day return his remains to Canaan, foreshadowing the future exodus from Egypt. So they stay there even after the famine is over. It's pretty obvious because we're talking about he lives to see the third generation of his younger son. So he's there for a very long time. And he tells them, I want to be buried in Canaan with my father. And they promise that when they leave Egypt, whenever it happens, they will go into the tomb where he's in a coffin and they will take his body. And we know in Exodus that does happen. So it foreshadows the future Exodus from Genesis. But it explains to people that may not know just how the Hebrews or the Israelites ended up in Egypt. Okay, it does not say why they chose to stay, or maybe it does in Exodus. We just haven't gotten there. But I'm very happy I got through all 50 chapters. I hope you did as well. The study guide is online. It is updated to have hole punching. And I do believe there are going to be more items coming for Genesis. I'm thinking of word studies. I have a word study Bible here. And you have to excuse how battered it's just been loved, okay? So when you look in a word study Bible, this is how I do my faith studies and things for people when they want word studies. Anything that's underlined, it has a word study and tells you, where you would look it up. I was thinking I could do a lot of the words that are in the book of Genesis for word studies. I know that there is a Genesis sticker bundle coming out. There's also the individual stickers that's already been online. I'm thinking about doing character studies. Basically, the study guide is not a summary of each chapter. It's just the summary of the notes made more cohesive with some artwork. Let me know what you guys would like to add to your study guide, because at the moment, mine, looks like this. And as we can see, I have plenty more room in my notebook here. So we have the study guide. And I'm thinking I'm going to put some chapters, some character studies, some word studies, maybe even some verse mapping sheets for me to do, as we go through the rest of the Old Testament, as we've seen during the readings, even today when we're talking about, what was it? It was Levi and Simon, I believe it was. Was it Levi and Simon? Yeah, it's Simon and Levi. So, we're referring back to the story of Dinah, the defilement of Dinah. With Reuben, we're referring back to when he slept with his father's concubine. There's so many aspects in the readings from Genesis all the way through the rest of the Bible that are going to come back, that I'm thinking that might be a time when I want to do some verse mapping. When I've already seen the material and it's expanded upon or it's referred back to. But I just don't know what else to add to the Genesis binder at the moment. And I would love some ideas. So until I see you guys in another video, I hope you have a wonderful Mother's Day. And the Bible reading, let's see, we can go ahead and cross this off. I have done these 2 videos. Yes, I have. The guide is up. Now, we were supposed to be reading Psalms 1 through 16. And I believe before I start Exodus, I'm going to go back and do the Psalms 1 through 16 on camera. So, like I said, I hope you'll have a wonderful Mother's Day. And send me some messages and ideas of what you would like to see in a binder for each book of the Bible. So, bye!